I don't think we've ever had that before. Okay, this meeting will be called to order. We will do roll call, and we'll start with Sheldon.
While you're doing that, I just have to run and get something.
Sheldon Cohn.
Mike Wright.
Martha Schroed.
David Schwartz.
Kimberly Watts.
And Andy Doctorow. The first item on the agenda was to be the approval of the agenda, but I think what we have to do is accept a motion to revise tonight's agenda to place the fourth item, approval of minutes, after what is currently number 8.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, the motion is, all those in favor? The motion passes unanimously. And just for the record, the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to have a discussion about the minutes and the form in which they've been presented. We used a court reporter, unbeknownst to me, last time, and I think Hank's going to have a discussion about that. So Hank, we've just revised the agenda pursuant to motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is going to be the approval of the minutes, which is the wrong. We're going to do that later. We just voted on that. So the first item up is, yeah, I'm 56 years old, so it's about time. I'm going to be 56.
You're a
Yeah.
youngster.
First item on this agenda, as my very bad eyes indicate, is the residence at 10755 Elgin. You want to present? You've been here before. Thank you, and welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
Good to be back. Hello, good to see you guys again.
Hello.
I'm Renee on behalf of Gina Bonrigo. She's the owner at 10755 Elgin Avenue. And just to recap, this is a proposal for adding a 2-story addition on the south or rear side of the house, as well as 2 dormers on the north or front side. Overall, the design allows for a larger living space, including a larger kitchen, mudroom, family room on the first floor, as well as a master suite on the second. And since our last meeting, we've updated the exterior elevations to better reflect the design intent, specifically how the addition ties in with the existing structure. All that's best depicted on 2.0 of the drawing sets. The south side addition, we are bringing it in 3 feet on both sides of the existing footprint. We did that to ensure that we stayed within our square foot allowance. Since the last meeting, we also had to relocate some of the second floor windows in the master bath and office in order for them to clear the slope of the existing roof line, which will remain. The window heights also cater to the reverse gable, which is the roof we're using on the south side addition. From a materials perspective on the exterior, we're introducing a new material to break up the existing siding. That resulted in adding the brick veneer water table on all sides, existing and new. Hardy plank lap siding will replace the existing vinyl siding. The color will be similar to the existing house, which is a dark blue. All window trim will just be white, so it's pretty similar colorway as to what's there. But as I said, the exterior elevations have been updated to better reflect our design intent.
Which was the big problem last time, I
Yeah.
recall, that
Yeah.
we did not have a so-called contract off of which to base our decision-making, something that was current.
Correct.
One of the issues, at least. Anything else?
Not for me.
Hank?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the last meeting, basically what it was is the project in theory was fine. Nobody really had a problem with it, but they couldn't really read the exterior elevations and the prints. Since then, she's brought the roof line down to more accurately reflect what's there. You'll see that the windows now tie in fairly close to the pine line, which is what they should have shown last time, but she's corrected that. She's shown more detail to show where the the addition actually steps in. And again, all the other requirements she meets. The issue is that we didn't feel that we had a set of plans that we could approve last time, and she has made corrections to those.
Thank you.
So I won't go through all the dimensions again, because they're the same.
Okay, thank you. Public participation? Open and close. Start with Kim.
I appreciate you addressing that and just presenting us with something that we can see. I don't have any concerns about it as it's presented now.
Thank you.
I likewise have a better sense now of what's gonna be there, so I have no issues either.
No concerns.
Looks great, no issues.
So am I. Thank you very much for working with us. Thank you for
Thank you, guys.
providing us the revised plan so we can feel good about the decision. We look forward to the changes, and
You'll need an
I have the motion. There it is again. There it is again. I'm entering my dotage. It's happening. I've been waiting for it, and it's happened tonight in one fell swoop.
Just wait till you hit 60.
I will move to approve this, or did anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I move to
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much
At least
for
I
your
predicted
time.
right that
Thank
you'd
you.
win.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Hillian Homes house at 12708 Talbot. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Feel free to proceed. Whenever you're ready.
Well, we came in last time, if you recall, and sort of a similar situation. We had a set of plans, but we needed to make some modifications to those, and y'all were kind enough to table us for this meeting, which we appreciate. We've made the recommendations to conform, and we've gone back and forth with Mr. Berry several times to make sure all of our numbers are correct this time, and I think we have a plan here that works.
Is there a meeting of the minds that you are in fact below the square footage
Yes,
limit?
yes, sir.
Hank, just so we understand,
Absolutely.
and I assume it's by no more than 1 square foot.
You are.
You're close,
Right
three.
there.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, Hank?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point in time, Mr. Ray and Mr. Ferris, their designer, and I have pretty much worn out our email trail as far as going through the square footages and details and that. So what you have before you, and I put some information for you at your places this evening. We went through everything, and there was a few areas that Mr. Ferris hadn't calculated correctly. Those have been corrected. On the second floor, when you take a look at it, you'll see that part of the stairs has been reopened up and a closet was taken out. There was square footage there. So that's how they got from point A to point B. The fenestration calculations, we went back and forth with on making sure that they were correct. They now are correct, and we have a concurrence between Mr. Ray and myself that that's what those are. He is under the requirements. Other than that, his house will meet all the requirements for an R1B home as far as size, and what he qualifies for as far as bonuses. His square footage is correct, and also with that, he has also the landscape plan from last time, which shows what he's planning on doing. So we have all the information that we need on this, and we were lacking just a little bit of clarification last time as to the fenestration and to the square footage, which they've now provided us, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and just so we understand, the papers that we're looking at right here on the memo that you
Yes.
gave, tell us a little bit about when that was generated. It's
Some of it was even generated today.
okay,
So.
and we know
that's
you
why-
guys want to get in the ground.
Yeah, and, you know, with the understanding on that, what we did was that we wanted to make sure that we had a format where not only did it show what we needed, but it was in a form that you could understand where the changes were made. And Mr. Ray was good enough to provide that for us through his designer, Mr. Ferris. So having said that, if you can take a look at the openings, you'll see the calculations per opening, per window. So you'll see where the fenestration calculations are. Those we do concur with. You'll also see the square footage calculations in your submission there. And again, that's another thing that we concur with. So at this point in time, we believe that Mr. Ray has presented us with a house that is under the maximum square footage size and complies with the fenestration in order to get the bonus, which would make his square footage legitimate.
Thank you. Anything else? Hank?
No, that's all I had.
Okay, public participation? Open and close. Sheldon?
No comments, I'm good. Hank, just for my own clarification, on these part of the memos here, that peak vent that's shown, that counts as fenestration?
Yeah.
It does, okay.
It's perforation in the wall, it counts as architectural, you know.
Okay. No comment.
I think the only thing I was wondering about is on the north elevation, second floor, you've got one window way over to the left and then a big open area that's not, it just looks a little,
I'm sorry, Martha, what page are you on?
We have 4 on the blue.
3 or 4
She's looking at this
Okay.
right now.
on the north
elevation.
elevation, second floor. Just looks a little, proportionally, it just looks a little odd, but, and I recognize and acknowledge that you have fenestration on all the other planes, throughout the house, it just,
Yeah, it's over the top. You couldn't.
well, we can't put a window in a bathtub.
No, that's,
Some people like that.
I don't think our neighbors would like that.
All right. I don't know that it's something that, is major, I just made note of it.
thank you.
But, everything else looks fine, in order, so.
No comments.
I don't have anything additional.
Hank, my only question is
Yes, sir.
the garage. What are the rules on the garage with fenestration in the rear elevation? Are there any rules? There's no window there, and I don't know whether that's an issue.
That doesn't transpose to the garage. The only thing that goes to the garage is materials. It must be made of 50%, at least 50% of the predominant material of the house. In this case, Mr. Ray is brick. Mr. Ray has agreed to at least make the garage 50% brick.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
And actually, I don't have that plan here, but there actually is a window in the
In the rear?
garage.
wouldn't
It's
be
on the
in the
side.
rear. It's on the
It's
side.
on the side.
No, I'm talking about the rear
Oh.
elevation. Okay.
On the other side.
Okay,
For egress.
okay, that's all I had. I guess I wanted to thank you for your tolerance and patience with the process. Thank you for participating and working with us. Very much appreciated. We knew that last time was a little bit frustrating for everyone, and but we're very happy you're investing in the community with your family. But I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Second,
Second?
all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You guys are 4? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Chair, at this point in time, your client isn't here yet. Do you wanna wait and let Mr. Cliff go first?
Sure, well, my client isn't here yet either.
Okay. Well,
This is like,
This has never happened before either.
well, here's the thing, the Earl's client is religious, and it's the second day of Sukkot, which is, and they can't really get here until sundown, which is happening.
right.
So,
Past the neighborhood.
what we might suggest is that if they feel comfortable presenting, to go ahead, or
I guess,
Mr.
couldn't we have a
Cliff
50-minute adjournment?
You can, I mean, unless
Can we
Mr.
address
Cliff-
the minutes?
Bob, do you think
What?
you're?
We could address
Can we address the minutes now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, why don't we address the minutes?
Can we,
Can we read?
That's gonna be a fairly,
Isn't
Oh, is
sun,
it?
isn't
Is it?
sundown not gonna be till 8:30 for them to leave to get here?
it could well be that they're, I don't think so. That's why I didn't wanna get into the minutes and then hold them up when
Okay.
they come in.
Religiously, I think it is closer.
Pardon me?
I think it is closer to 8:15 or 8:30.
It may be,
Okay.
but the goal would be to get, yeah. So the goal would be to get something done without doing that. I just didn't wanna get into the minutes, cause the minutes are extensive. And they were taken out of 137 pages that I was furnished with. So I didn't really wanna get into that until the end. That's why I asked for the deferment on it, if that's okay with you. If not, I mean, I would let Mr. Cliff go and begin. It's up to you.
It's up to you, actually. What do you
Okay,
think?
why don't we,
on his way. I don't know where he's
why don't we
going.
let Bob go first and,
Do we need to redo the agenda at this point, or we have to switch it around?
you can make a motion to have, the
Yep.
Palm Dentistry Clinic go.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to switch 8 to 7, which actually now it's 7 to 6, given the fact that we moved up,
So moved.
4. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, we've got a newly revised agenda. And so we're gonna have.
Okay, and he even has his client here.
Good, so MGA Associates, at 26335 Woodward. Thank you. Why don't you present? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Robert Cliff with MGA Architects, 4351 Delamere Court, Royal Oak, Michigan. I'm here tonight to present our proposal for a remodel and expansion of the existing building at 26635 Woodward Avenue. It's an existing tri-level building. It's been vacant for a while, from what I can determine, and it's in need of some serious updates and repairs and remodel. We plan to convert it to a dental office with tenant space below. The existing building is approximately 3,175 square feet per floor. We plan to add 2 additions on the courtyards, and there, I don't know if you've seen the video or not, but my video technician is.
Not yet, I'm trying to get it to where he can show you what's kind of going
So
on.
anyway, I've got, we're putting the 2 additions, filling in the interior courtyards on the north and south sides of the building so that we create 2 floors that are approximately 3,350 square feet each. We're gonna be putting Dr. Palm's, who just arrived, his dental office for the most part on the upper level. The lower level will be predominantly tenant space with a small amount of dental office area such as storage and staff room, etc. Then we also are including a barrier-free accessible elevator. The building currently is not barrier-free accessible at all. So we lowered the lowered the front entrance so that we could have a walk-in entry, and then at that point you walk into the main floor where you would then have stairs up, stairs down, and an elevator that would take you to both levels. In addition to that, we're looking at 9 treatment rooms on the upper level. We're creating here a 21st century dental office for Dr. Palm, something that's going to service him for decades to come. And we also wanted to create a building that has identity along the street. Right now, the building is really nondescript. It's sort of a small, squat little building that gets lost amongst the larger buildings to the north of it. So we wanted to create a building that has a whole new fenestration, a mix of cultured stone, glass and steel, and then what little brick is on there will be painting a really dark color such as a charcoal or something similar to that. The challenge of this building is that what their heating bills were in the past is beyond me, because the steel frames actually go from inside out. There's no transition between, there's no protection. So what we did is we clad the exterior of the building with a mix of steel frame, metal studs, cultured stone, and then a curtain wall in front of the existing steel frame system. Now we would have an energy efficient far more 21st century building in terms of energy efficiency. The other items that to discuss quickly would be just the parking. We've calculated the parking. We're working with Mr. Barry, and we determined that there's 25 existing spaces, and that for a medical dental use on both the upper floor and the lower floor, including the 10 space, 25 parking spaces. And this is not even counting the spaces that are along the, what I call the service drive.
Anything else?
No, there's a couple videos.
Yeah.
Are there lights, by the way? or-
Yeah, we can cut this light out.
Just, I do these videos and I want to show off of it.
Right,
So,
he put time into it.
yeah.
So here's basically what we have with
There we
this. Did you wanna go through it, or did you want me
Well,
to?
I mean, this would be the view from Woodward, moving down along the south side of the building. As I said, we reclad the whole building with the cultured stone, and we're doing a mix of glass and metal panels and wood panels, just to create some visual interest, and also coordinating with the interior walls that are inside, which is why all the windows don't exactly match. But we kept the two sets of windows on the east and west side, the one side facing the existing residences, and then the north side, or sorry, the east side facing Woodward. And there's also another video, which my technical assistant will give me a hand with,
I will give this a whack.
because we like to show off a bit when we can.
I don't blame you.
There we go. So we also did a nighttime version, which would give an idea what this would look like when it's illuminated. We did wall-mounted wall sconce that would illuminate the cultured stone going up and down, and then it sort of gives you a semblance of what this building would look like with the mix of the panels, the solids, the opaques, and the translucents, so you get a sense of how this building feels a little more open and airy compared to what it is now.
Not only that, there's just a couple things that I do want to point out that he didn't mention with this, is that there is some old light fixtures that are coming off
Correct.
the building at the top.
Yes.
So the lighting that he's proposing for this structure is way less obtrusive than what was there, which is a key point. This won't have light spill over into the neighborhood. This will be just directly lighting this particular structure.
That is correct, because there's a series of floodlights on top of the building that actually shoot out both on the parking lot towards Woodward and actually down behind the building, which I believe faces the residences.
Right, and then here, if you take a look at the top band that he has on here, currently that's a, for lack of a better word, it's a glued-on pebble finish
Yes.
to a fascia board, which is currently falling off and landing below. So the way that he's treated this, as far as the panels and their relationship to the fascia boards, or the fascia and everything else, it really brings a revitalization to this building that it hasn't seen. So this is actually one of the first real renovations on Woodward, and it comes before us as a pretty nice one. I do need to read into the record, a neighbor has requested that I do, although I do want to emphasize that the parking that Bob has addressed does meet the parking without counting the MDOT spaces out front. And again, that's public property, but it doesn't preclude them they have to contain the spaces on their own property. They have that, and the spaces out in front, which are MDOT spaces, would just be spillover if there was anything. I have a letter from Mr. Brodsky, who's a neighbor, and he says that he may not be able to attend the meeting tonight, but he wants to express his concern that the site has enough parking. The board may be aware in the buildings along Woodward, parking has been an ongoing issue. The buildings that I manage at 26711 Woodward and 26789 Woodward have always had ample parking, but the other buildings have not. Historically, the buildings that I manage purchased additional lots to make sure that there is ample parking for the users of the building. You may be aware that some time ago there was legal action between the owner of 26711 and the owner to the building to the south because that building did not have ample parking. To this day, properties to the north and south encroach upon the buildings that I manage. Please make sure that Dr. Palm is aware that the users of his building cannot encroach upon the other owner's parking. I think that Mr. Cliff is aware of it. We've discussed it. We know what the spaces are, and they have MDOT spaces. So, having said that, I did promise Mr. Brodsky that I would address that, so we have that information for the record. And other than that, I do want to point out that they have a dumpster enclosure that's planned for the back of the lot. It wasn't on the original site plan, but it is going to be in the rear portion of this, away, which is perfectly permissible. I did also want to point out that even with the parking, because I know that that's a sore subject, they've got their spaces combined with the property, but as Mr. Cliff shows on his plans, you have 7 spaces out in front as well. And there's nothing saying that you can only park in those spaces, you can use the MDOT spaces. Mr. Brodsky was just very concerned that his spaces wouldn't be impacted by this, and realistically, they shouldn't be. I would hope that Mr. Palm is extremely successful, or Dr. Palm, excuse me, is extremely successful and fills all his spaces right up to the 25th one. So having said that, Mr. Chair, that's really all I have at this point in time. All the other criteria that he has, he meets. And I think that anything else they would have or any other requirements would be up to the building department, and they could do that with MGA Architects.
Thank you.
So, if there's any questions, I'm sure that either Bob or I would be happy to answer.
Thank you. Public participation, anyone have any comments? Okay, public participation is open and closed. Kim?
It's exciting to see some activity along that corridor. I know we talked a lot when we were working through guidelines and the plan of trying to attract some business and be able to see some activity there, so it's nice to see that. And I think you've done a great job in making that stand out a little bit and be an attractive building and address any of the concerns. Parking is really the big one.
Thank you.
Hank has addressed that.
Yeah, I likewise agree. We don't get a lot of these buildings. Obviously, there's not that many, so it's nice to see one that's gonna get redone in a very modern way. Start making it look a little nicer along Woodward, so yeah, looks great.
Thank you.
Oh, I like your design. I think it's lovely. Was I looking at the right plan, that there was plans for, residential too, or was that?
No, that's not
Okay.
us.
It's just from the guidelines.
That's
from the
allowed from
standards, I
our
think.
zoning, but
Oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
is allowed for zoning, but it's not included in it.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, I know, when we were discussing, future plans for Woodward, especially with, the queue line and discussion of transportation coming down Woodward, you know, we were really excited about getting mixed-use buildings in there, and, yeah, I applaud it, it's great. Nice design, I like the use of the lighting and the way you use the panels to bring out the design, so.
thank you, Mark. Right?
Looks great, thank you for doing something on Woodward. And as an existing Dr. Palm patient, I can't wait to see it.
Okay, question, is this in conformity with master plan?
The master plan would prefer transitional zoning, but there's nothing saying that they can't do this.
Okay. How much, I mean, I think a dental office is a fairly high use in terms of parking allocation.
1 to 200.
Okay, got it. If another, how would that limit what other uses may be available to the balance of the building that isn't occupied by Dr.
It may limit it.
Okay,
So, you know, that would be something that would be revisited. Right now, they don't have a build out for the bottom, you know, other than very limited.
I'm
so-
asking the question because I want Dr.
No,
Paul
that's a-
aware of that issue.
Yeah, that's, and absolutely, and, you know, if they were to go ahead and put a restaurant down there, that may change, you know, but I mean, for the time being and with the plan that they're submitted, they're fine.
Okay, got it. Those were my only questions. Other than that, I join other members of the commission in applauding the investment and dressing up the building and making that particular face of the city that much more attractive. Thank you.
As do I, thank you very much, thank you. It's a great looking building, and the videos are very nice. Question before we vote, Yes, sir. Did anything that we do, when it comes to the rezoning, come into play at all here? Or would this have been the same analysis under the old regs?
This would have been, the 1 to 200 ratio would have stayed for the parking, and the lighting was always that. It's just they've kind of gone a little bit extra over and above to make sure that the lighting is not obtrusive to the residents.
Okay.
Which I was really glad to see, because our two biggest issues that we always have with commercial properties are parking and lighting.
Right.
Like trespass.
And, you know, that was it. So, the signage was not part of this, and that'll be presented at a later date. So, they wanna get on their build out and do that. So, having said that, we were glad to see this particular building get the makeover.
Great. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve as presented?
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much. It's unanimously approved.
Appreciate it.
What is the story with Earl Brothers? Anyone here?
No, well, we can present.
You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, next up is Earl Brothers at 13329 Ludlow.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, reemphasize that there's 6 people here, they need 5 votes for approval.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You guys are aware of that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got 2, I don't know if any of you had an opportunity, I know everyone's busy, to get by and actually walk the site, but I did take a picture of the existing property as it is right now, and just wanted to have that available to you all as I go through the project. What we have right now is an existing bungalow, 80-foot wide lot. So it's a pretty substantial lot, more than the minimum for the zoning district. What we've discovered through the course of designing and investigating, talking with the homeowners, is that I believe the garage originally was detached from the house, and somewhere along the lines, someone has attached what is being used right now as a breakfast room, what I refer to on the plans as a breezeway, what is actually enclosed. They have a real issue with the cold air coming up from the floor in the winter, and they had an insulation company come out and investigate, and there's not a sufficient crawl space there, and it looks like someone put a ledger board on the garage and the house and just kind of joist between it, and built a wall down from the joist into the ground and sided it to blend with the house. So we've got what may be a weekend warrior existing non-conforming use that we're going to tear off of the house. The garage being detached, the floor inside is all broken up concrete, and it definitely does not have a sufficient foundation to add any type of square footage above it or qualify as an attached garage to meet today's code. So what we're proposing is to tear off the, if you go to page, I believe it's 7, just as a demolition footprint plan, the existing slash lines, tearing off the room in between the existing house and the attached garage, removing the attached garage, and then building a new attached garage with a storage room, a new family room, and a new master suite on the first floor on the back of the house. In doing so, we're actually increasing the side yard setback and stepping that back away from the setback line to give a little more room and buffer between the house to the west and create a little more green space. And I know the catchphrase, it seems like since the new ordinance has been implemented, is massing, and years ago it used to be Bigfoot or McMansion, and I think our idea is to try and condense the addition and the remodeling inside of the actual building envelope and step it back from the front. I know the minimum step back from the front for an attached garage is 3 feet, and we are stepping it back over 11.5 feet. And we're stepping the side in an additional 3.5 feet from where the existing garage is right now, which will provide us with an 8.5 foot side yard setback as opposed to the minimum 5 foot setback. The existing east side between the house on the east already is at approximately 11.5 feet over here. And what we've tried to do, and I'm trying to show you some 3D perspectives in these views to kind of give you an idea of scale and mass and how we're trying to incorporate the step backs on the addition and create these, still mimic the roof lines of the existing house. We're keeping the addition below the ridge height of the existing house, but we do feel it's necessary to make it a 2-story unit just to kind of adapt and meet today's energy codes, with heel heights and bungalows being a relatively inefficient, energy efficient way building style for at least the way they were constructed in the middle of last century. You just don't have enough room to insulate on top of the wall, and that's where you probably have residents complaining of ice dams and water damage and whatnot. So we are stepping back the center area where we are attaching, where the old breezeway is. We're expanding the kitchen. There's an existing egress window well to the south of the fireplace, and you can see that on the foundation plan. But we're trying to create a step back and a courtyard and keep that green area as it is right now somewhat. So there's the opportunity to landscape that. And then on the second floor, we're converting the existing second bedroom, putting a partition in to create a new remodeled hallway into the 2 new bedrooms above the garage and the Jack and Jill bathroom. Again, being mindful that we like, as everyone does, natural light and providing windows, and using the remainder of the existing bedroom as an office study, kind of a computer room for the kids up there to do their homework and whatnot. That's kind of an overview of the project and how I want to, I guess, preface that hope I'm not, and my intention is not to take any liberties with the bonus square footages. And the way I had figured them in reviewing the footnotes and the new ordinance regulations was, we start with our 1,900 square foot base. We're applying and hoping to receive the 150 square foot bonus for maintaining the existing ridge, and the addition being lower than the existing ridge of 26 feet. We're looking for the step back, and this is where I know we have to partner with you as the commissioners, and are looking for a little insight as far as how that is interpreted. I'm hoping that our intent is that we're addressing the massing situation by stepping the side, the west side elevation in an additional 3.5 feet, by increasing the step back from the garage and the kitchen extension and hallway on the second floor. We are adding the, obviously, coverage on the first floor and proposing a 47-foot rear setback. And with, again, there's a footnote and a diagram on the new ordinance which contradict themselves, but whether it's 25 or 30 feet, at 47 feet, we're well within that envelope as far as the rear setback. So we're hoping that with all those things, and the second floor is most certainly on the back, the closest is 10 feet step back from the line of the house. And where we're looking for a little bit of clarification is in reading the regulations, it says a 3-foot step back of the second floor, but it doesn't necessarily tell us what we're stepping back from. Is it the setback line? Is it the wall below it? Is it the leading edge of the roof?
Have you talked about that with Hank? Because I didn't
I
think,
have,
I didn't think there was
and
ambiguity as to that issue. I thought
Yeah.
it was setback from the actual lower.
What the issue
Well,
really
yeah.
becomes here, Andy, and this is where an interesting point, and I mean, I'll let Mr. Earl.
Yeah, so
go-
you've defined the
finish with it.
issue, so let's table it until you
Yeah,
finish your
kind of see what it is,
presentation.
but I do
Okay.
have an explanation that I think might
Okay.
favor Mr. Earl's cause, but.
So we were hoping that we're meeting the intent that way, and that we will gain a bonus square footage there of 100 square feet. And then as we go through the plan, I would point out the character bonuses. We're looking to achieve 500 of an available 600 square feet of character bonuses with wood, composite, or cement siding, which would be the entire existing resident as well as the addition, with Anderson wood-clad windows, real wood windows with cladding. By adding the shutters, we're adding also composite window trim around the new windows, and as well as corner boards on all the corners of the addition and house. We've added some, and they're not really showing up a real lot on the elevations, and I apologize for that, but on the page 8, the front elevation, we've got a couple what are technically known as buttresses, but for a layman's term, brackets, decorative brackets underneath the overhangs to give it a little more detail as well. We are also covering the existing portion of the basement foundation that sticks above grade, which is painted cinder block right now. We are going to thin set a stone veneer to that and skirt that, as well as add that to the new covered front porch that we're proposing and the column bases that will support the porch roof. So we're hoping to try and again, another, you know, I know this is a collaboration effort, and it's kind of, the merits are based project by project, site by site, and I hope all of these things are taken into account, because when I look at the bonuses, it's really up to 250 square foot as determined by the planning commission, and I guess my thought, is there another equation? If you only do one architectural detail, do you get 1/3 of that? If you do two, do you get 2/3 of that? If you do three or more, are you entitled to get the whole 250? But I'm calculating and hoping to get approval for the stepped-in second floor, 100 square foot, the roof height, and the 250 of the architectural details, as well as a lot size bonus, which again, there may be a little bit of a, as I'm reading through this, I'm seeing all the districts' bonuses capped off, and we start at R1A at 750, then B is 812, C is 625, D is 350, E is 400. But when you go to the chart, it shows you start with 1900 as a base, and you can go up to 2350 with the lot size bonus, depending on your lot, of course. But
That's
that
R1E.
difference. No, I'm looking at R1D.
What's that, what,
Page 31 from your
okay.
zoning ordinance. So if I take the 1900 less the 2350, I'm actually at 450 square feet. So I guess my question is, am I capped at 350? Is it 450?
I think my figures come out a little bit more favorable.
Yeah,
than Mr.
so you may be
So
advocating, you might be
you're not-
advocating
I may be
yourself.
entitled to 16 more square, and it's not, you know.
Well, rather than going through the calculation,
Yeah,
what we're gonna do is hear from Hank as to what he thinks.
Yes, I just wanted to bring all the points and,
okay.
and obviously work with you. Our intent is not to just assume we qualify for these things. Our intent is to work with you, meet the intent and the spirit of
Yep.
the zoning ordinance as it applies to mass.
Anything else?
That is pretty much it.
Thank you. Before we open it up to Hank, I want to ask a couple of questions of
Sure,
you.
please do.
We did not get an analysis in our package for this property other than the one side with the square footage and the size issues.
On your first page that you have on the packet, it'll show you what base allowance bonuses were, what the 1900 plus 150 plus
Yeah, I see
250
that.
plus
Your usual narrative is in here.
333. Right, and I was gonna do that orally because we have to discuss the setback issue, which I think that Mr. Earl may well be entitled to, even though I didn't include it in my calculations.
Okay, and also the fenestration, is that gonna be addressed?
The fenestration would be addressed, but he's not gonna qualify for it, but I do wanna point out that he's got, where we're at is I come out very, very, very close on this, so let me just go
Okay.
through if it's okay with you,
Fine.
and we'll do that. So where I come out with this, and I think what Mr. Earl is looking for is a clarification on the step back. Typically, we would think of it as far as a setback, a step back of the second floor. With the new design, Mr. Earl set the whole thing back. So there's actually less mass because it's not up with a second floor step back, the whole thing is set back. And I could make an argument for that being accomplishing the intent of the ordinance when he did that. So I don't necessarily have an issue with that at all if the planning commission wanted to determine that he met the spirit of that particular setback, of that particular, and qualified for the bonus figures with that. In fact, it makes more sense to do so. On the garage, you'll notice between the first and second floor where he did put the roof with the bracketing between the second and first floor, also further to help break up the mass and the design of that. So I do feel that the design in and of itself has accomplished that. You'll also notice that the addition to the far right side comes in at 24.4. The addition between the two, which already existed, which Mr. Earl spoke to as needing to come down because of architectural and building deficiencies, also a step down. So there's not a straight, huge, long mass of a straight roof line. It's broken up and it drops, so he's accomplished what he was needing to accomplish there. Part of the thing with this house too is that you take a look at this and you'll see that the house was originally sided. It was their interest to introduce the stone based on the house that was done at the corner of Parkwood and Edward. And if you were to take a look at that, it was a hardy structure with stone on the base for that, and the stone will be used in the correct proportions or the correct placement here because the stone should rise out of the ground. I mean, that's just how the architectural works. The heaviest material goes to the bottom typically. So that's how this design looks. So having said that, where I come out with is the house, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, is the way that I see this, is if you buy into the stepping the whole thing back accomplishes the same thing as the 3-foot setback, which I could see, then I have your base allowance of 1,900 plus the 3-foot step back allowance, which starts you at 2,000. 150 for the roof height puts you at 2,150. 250, 250 for that, that'll put you at 2,400, and then 333 for the lot size bonus, which actually is 366. Mr. Earl and I went through the math, and although the lot shows up on the Oakland County as 10,000 square feet, which I base these calculations on, Mr. Earl's survey that he provided shows it as 10,400, which gives him the additional. So I show that he's right there for the square footage on that. If you accept the fact that he stepped that back, that he's done a sufficient job with that for breaking the roof line, setting the entire structure back, and putting the roof line over the garage in and of itself. So that's where I'm at on that. Other than that, he meets the height, width, setbacks as far as that. The house at the 2745 that Mr. Earl's proposing meets, well, the one house to the west is 1,556 square feet. The house to the east is 2,154 square feet. And again, he's maintained the front of this style of house as a bungalow, kind of a bungalonial, if you will. So where the house in of itself, the original architecture is preserved, and he has the addition to the right, but he spaces it with the addition in there. So if you take a look at that, the architecture is consistent. He's used the window trims, he's used the shutters, he's upgraded the entire siding all the way around. They're showing a new door. They're showing, actually, this is pretty much a complete makeover, the entire house.
Whole house remodel.
Yeah, so this is something. And then if you take a look at the elevations, because I do want to discuss the fenestration for a minute here. While he's not going to get the fenestration bonus because of the 20% on all elevations, where he did put the windows makes sense architecturally. So that won't qualify him for that, but if you take a look around and then take a look at the interior floor plan, and then one of the key things that you have to take a look at is what the windows are on the original house where the openings already were, and what the windows are on the structure that Mr. Earl is proposing, because you can't necessarily make him go ahead and add windows into the house that was existing, blow through walls and put new windows in, but you want to take a look at it. The front elevation clearly meets the fenestration. The rear elevation does not, and I think that if he, I mean, he could come a little bit closer, but I don't think he needs it if you buy into the 100 square feet for the setback. So that's kind of where that comes into play. Into putting, like in the back where the new family room addition is, to put a gable vent back there of substance to take up some of the, take up some of the fenestration. But I don't know that that furthers the project at all. Then if you take a look at the east and west elevations, you can kind of see that this is what he has on the west elevation. He's going to qualify because what he's putting in the addition part of this would meet that. So on the other side, he has one window in, it would fall a little bit short, but he would still meet it on the parts of the addition. He's broken up all the roof lines on this to provide architectural interest. But having said that, the issue really comes down to as far as the square footage, because I believe we're there if you can accept the fact that he stepped the entire thing back rather than just put the second floor back.
And before we open it up,
Yeah.
we've never, correct me if this is wrong, contemplated this, right?
No, Mr. Earl's, what he actually did was, we asked the second floor to break for the mass, and he took the whole thing back. So one can surmise that he's accomplished the same thing.
Well, I mean, look, if the purpose is to be less oppressive to one's neighbors, certainly moving the whole house back would seem to achieve or at least advance that goal. I guess my question to you, Hank, is, in your professional judgment, do you think that what they have done by moving the whole house is consistent with the spirit of this particular bonus.
I do, and that's why I brought that up, because I feel like the intent of it, and you know, we've sat here for many nights going over this. I think the intent was to reduce massing. I think what he did actually more than accomplishes it, because he would have had, on another house, for example, that would have been a first floor brick, second floor stepped in with siding. And then what Mr. Earl's done is just moved the entire thing back, added the roof line to break up the mass, and I think that it's accomplished that. But I don't get a vote.
Okay.
So that's up to you.
So are you done, Hank?
I am.
Public participation, open and closed. I guess Sheldon, we'll start with you.
I like the plan a lot. I guess one of my questions is whether, this is on the south side of the street, isn't it?
Mhm.
It is
Yes.
on the south side, yes.
Because at least as I'm looking at these, like exterior elevation north, which would seem to me to be the front of the house,
Correct.
you've got identified, looks to me like the back of the house on the picture I'm looking at.
That's the labeling of it.
Yeah,
Did I
that's what
The house is backwards, but it's the house.
I understand, I'm just easily confused.
Yes, you're right, I did,
Yeah.
Okay, I think
I
the
did
east and west are
mislabel
right.
that.
No,
I
I
apologize.
think my only question would be whether or not, and I have no problem with this house in terms of providing the extra bonus square footage based upon a liberal interpretation
Right.
of the standard. Now, I don't know if the bonus is specifically identified as a setback from, if it's stated in the ordinance to be a setback from the floor below, or if the language is a little looser than that.
I think my interpretation was of it when I looked at it and I thought of it, my thought went first to, what was the intent? And the intent was to reduce massing.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's why I went with that, so.
I'm going back to the language though.
Yeah,
Does it say a 3-foot setback from
I mean, that,
the floor below?
it says
or
a
does it just say-
3-foot step in on the front elevation and at least one other elevation. So the other elevation in the back is the
The
first
argument.
floor addition, so that covers it. The elevation on the front steps in, it says a 3-foot step in on the front elevation, so the literal interpretation could be that he's just fine without
Okay,
my
I
point.
get
That's what I
no
was
problem
thinking
with it,
right from
but
the
my
beginning.
next question is whether or not, without regard to whether or not I think this is a fine plan,
Yeah,
whether or not, A, that language needs to be made a little more specific, and B, whether or not, if that's not done, whether or not we're gonna be faced with somebody else saying you did it for him.
well, here's the thing, if it accomplishes the goal for the step in, I'm not convinced that it would matter if somebody else came in and did the same thing. I think that if you had, that it would accomplish it. If it accomplishes what Mr. Earl is trying to do here, and we say, okay, the 3-foot step in, well, he's put it way back more than 3 feet, so we're good
I
with
know,
it.
but part of the evaluation of that is based on the fact that he's put it, I think you said 11 feet back.
Yeah,
Okay, if we're faced with the same thing where it's 3 foot back,
my interpretation would
stuck?
be,
Still acceptable,
yeah, I would think that it's still acceptable, and I
Because
think that it would meet the spirit of the ordinance.
3 feet behind the front face of the building.
Yeah.
That's what our intention was, so
Okay.
that we could break up the
Yeah.
massing across
Now-
the front.
Right, and I don't think that if it matters, you know, if you feel that it matters or we see that it's becoming an issue, we can certainly revisit it. But at this point in time, at least from my perspective, I'm not convinced that this doesn't accomplish exactly what we intended to do.
okay. I think it's a fine plan. I am especially pleased that you're basically taking the treatment consistently across the old as well as the new in terms of the materials that are being used and the materials that are being added. And I'm good with this. I think it's a fine addition to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I would agree, huge improvement over what's there. Two quick questions.
Sure.
One, you have like a basement egress situation drawn, and one, I think the three-quarter view that's in the front, kind of between the garage, yeah.
Yep.
So is that gonna be covered, is that gonna be open, is that gonna be a proper stairway down there? I can't really tell from the plans.
No, from what right now it does have a approved cover on it. It is
Okay.
an existing egress window that's already
So it's
there.
gonna remain an egress, it's not gonna be like a true,
Correct, the basement is
Okay.
finished, and the driving force for ultimately putting the new bedrooms above the garage was one of their children is actually using that as their primary bedroom down there. And after the floods and everything, and then rebuilding, it's like, okay, if I've gotta go to the planning commission because I wanna add the porch, I might as well go and ask for what I want, and how do we accomplish that with the ordinance and the new changes and giving them everything that, they're looking to do, and, we understand the massing. Just as far as Sheldon's discussion, the language, right, it's not black and white, but I believe that's the collaboration effort of, and the purpose of you all as board members is to, you gotta kind of weigh it in one by one, and that's why I wanted to make the point, but it really doesn't say where I'm stepping back from. But when I hear massing.
The point is understood.
I think we, yeah.
You know.
yeah, we're good.
We
Yeah,
already-
you-
So,
case by case.
The only other
But-
thing I had comment on is the, I think it looks great from every angle, every wall, with the exception of that rear family room addition gable wall.
Okay.
You've got a door wall or French doors or something coming out onto the side. So that
Correct.
back wall, I feel like that is really sticking out because of its lack of penetration. I assume that's where the TV is gonna go.
Exactly. Version 2, it was a 9-foot door wall coming out to the patio, and you know what happens as you're collaborating and working with homeowners. Hey, I saw this on house, take a look at this picture, and I kind of want it to be like this family room, windows on the side, flat screen here.
Is
This
that a
furniture.
scissors truss in that back room? Is
That's
that
what
how-
they're, that's an option, correct.
So
Okay.
I think you could fix that issue with some type of peak gable, peak window, something to break that wall up. I feel like you did such a good job on the treatments and the penetration on every other angle. That one's sticking out like it's a sore thumb to me. If you did something on that peak, whether it's a vent, a window, I'd slap a round window.
We
in there
can
if it's needed, but-
certainly, with the buttresses, we can add a decorative, piece on that gable, whether it wouldn't be necessarily a pulled brick feature, but it could be a decorative, feature in the gable. Vent necessarily, I don't wanna put a vent in with ridge vent and kinda cross-mix those things, but,
Is that gonna be a vaulted ceiling in that room?
that is one option, correct.
That was why I asked.
Yeah,
about
I mean, a
scissors.
window there would be nice.
A window would be real nice for,
You wanna put that as part of your motion?
I'm not gonna make a motion yet.
I know,
I'm
but,
just throwing it
I
out
mean, I
there.
guess my question is,
Yeah.
are you willing to, we only have 6 people, you need 5 tonight, just to head off the issue, is this something that you're willing to incorporate into a motion, so that you satisfy everyone,
And
On
what are
this-
we talking about?
on the
A
part that Mike's
window,
talking
are we
about?
talking about some kind of vent or
Well, Mike-
decorative,
well, a vent, if you're
architectural
doing scissors
detail?
trusses, a vent would be useless.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
So I
if
guess
that's, I mean, unless you wanted to see if that's a sticking point for Mr. Wright,
Right here.
yeah,
you might wanna see what the rest of the board says, but I think what he's wanting to do is try to break that up in some fashion, because the windows are spaced out, and the huge TV is gonna go right in the middle, so he's seeing a vast expanse of siding, that if the windows were even pushed in a little bit, which could be one option, or another element was introduced in the gable end, then that would satisfy what he's looking for. So I mean, basically realistically, what you're looking at there is probably something of a triangular nature or a half half round or something. It doesn't almost make sense to put like a half round up there if you don't have anything below it. It looks like it's missing something.
Right, I think we've run into problems with the homeowner's vision of what that should be on the interior. And
I'm fine going around the commission and seeing what everybody else thinks
Okay. Yeah, why-
before I
So
stay
what-
there.
without them being
are you
here,
done?
I just-
Yeah.
Martha?
So with regard to that peak, you know, I'm hesitant to suggest a window, because if you're on the south side, you're gonna have light beating in there, and that's gonna interfere with your good reception and being able to look at that gigantic TV. And
good
I think
point.
that's really a decision that we need the homeowner here to make.
I agree.
I understand, you know, that having that big split between the two windows is maybe an arborvitae in front would take care of it all, and,
Well, I
You
don't, I
know.
don't think we have a developed landscape plan, and
Right,
that may
right.
be what they plan on doing.
so, you know, that, if that's the only sticking point, I think, you know, considering all the other houses we've looked at and all the other bugaboos people have had, I think that this is, especially since it's on the backside of the house, I don't think it's that big of an issue, at least for me. I think you've done a tremendous job. You had a difficult plan to work with, you know, because having that gable on the front of the house on the right side and creating that weight there and having to balance that off and stepping back the garage the way you did, it kind of reminds me a little bit of what John Disbrow did with the Bratton house when they connected
It's the same
the
type of
carriage
connection.
house, yeah. So it was a brilliant way of managing it, and so it does break up the
Thank you.
space. And, I did drive past the house tonight, I saw they were in there, you know, and I thought, oh, gosh, you know, maybe they can't come tonight,
And we are
so-
preserving the tree that's in the front, that's not showing on the plan, but it
Right.
does show on the surveys, and we're
Right.
trying to
So,
minimize the
and it's
environmental
the house
impact
is
as well.
different from the other houses because it's all sided to begin with, and we don't have too many houses like that. I love that you are introducing the stone, and the columns, so, yeah, I think you did a fine job, so.
Thank you.
Definitely an improvement, will be nice. I also agreed that there was a window missing or something missing there, but not particularly concerned for all the reasons that have been said.
Probably gonna echo things. I do agree that the step-in language, is appropriately used here, that it's stepping in that plane, and that can be vertical or horizontal. I also had made a notes, on the window on the new family room addition, and on the, I think it's the east elevation, it's the master bedroom in the back, that's new construction.
Mhm.
That side looks a little sparse to me too, and that's really the only opportunity to add anything additional on that side. The rest I think is existing. So it's the rear of the house with the bedroom.
Correct.
I don't know that, you don't need the fenestration, I don't know that there's sticking points enough for me, but I would encourage those considerations with the homeowner, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah, I agree that, we can't make any decision, nor can you, to deviate from the plans without the homeowner. But the east and west, do strike me as too lightly fenestrated. But again, it's not egregious as everyone's, I think, suggesting. Hank,
Yeah.
couple questions just for my edification. I don't think I've heard it, but assuming, and I'm assuming that there's no problem, but if they get the, step-in bonus points, are they at or below the square footage limit that applies to this?
They're gonna be right there,
Like,
because.
what does that mean?
I mean, within a foot,
Below or above?
below.
Okay. And you described this as a, bungalonial, yeah. And I guess my question is that okay? Normally we don't have, I remember one of the ordinances or standards were, I mean, it said you don't go from one style of house to another style of house on an addition, that you have to preserve it or keep it intact. So how do we square that with of
Typically,
bungalow.
well, here's the thing. Typically, when you have houses, you want to preserve their original architecture. The original portion of the house, the architecture is being preserved. You could do one of two things. They could raise the entire roof and go out the back with the whole thing, which doesn't give them the attached garage that they were looking for. Or you can have a second floor garage, you can have the garage, which was originally there, and go out over the garage, which would have been allowed. The issue becomes, why is it a bungalow? Because it's kind of a combination of two things. If you take a look at principles of architecture, when you go back into like even the historic districts, and you take a look, one of the things that they want to do is they want to identify the original architecture, and the other side of the other architecture or addition should be differentiated in style and material so that you can tell which was original and what was different. Having said that, that's a little bit different than what we're used to as far as the planning commission goes. But there's really nothing that says you can't do that. So having said that, I think that what they've done is actually not in bad taste. I think that what they've done is they've brought it out over a garage that would have been existing. Had they brought it out, and again, I want to point out there's a step between the ridge and the other plan. So they brought it down and then they brought it back up, and on both roof lines, they're still below the original roof.
Right.
So I think that was done for a couple reasons. One, because that's the way the dimensions laid out to match the floors, and two, because it also respects the architecture of the original structure.
Which it does.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, according to what you're saying,
Yeah.
you can see what the original house was, and it's
Yeah.
not a bastardization of that.
No, and having said that, the way that they've done that is they've accepted, okay, here I have a bungalow, I can only do so much with it without taking the whole second floor off and dramatically changing it. So what they've done is, they've added their square footage, they've added their house, and they've actually impacted surrounding structures less by doing so because they brought the side and the garage in.
Okay. And I also agree that I think this panel is correctly interpreting reasonably and exercising judgment, that,
On the step back?
yeah, and the step back. Final question,
Yes.
just so I know, I mean, they're adding stone at the bottom, which is great, and, you know, there's no brick, and because the house is currently siding. There is no requirement here, according to the ordinances, that with the new construction as part of the addition, that there has to be any type of brick, because we're consistent with the original, material, correct?
They're doing this because they want to add this particular architectural feel and appearance to this. The house could be 100%
That's
siding and it would be consistent, so the fact that they've introduced another
Right, I just
material.
wanted to make that sure that was
Yeah,
clear in my mind.
absolutely,
I got it.
is because they want, it upgrades the house significantly
Got it.
by doing it.
Okay, I'm done.
Andy, can I, quick question,
sure.
I'm sorry. Hank, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but this lot is an 80-foot lot, and
Yes.
are the neighboring houses smaller than that? A narrower lot?
One is, one isn't.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I used to live down the block on 13313, and this really does improve that street. So, that was a house that just wasn't kept up particularly well. So, thank you, this is gonna be awesome. Anyone wanna make a motion?
Move to approve as presented?
I am, and I apologize for being late. The holiday did just end.
Understand.
No apology needed.
That's fine.
Thank you for doing,
I
and
didn't-
investing in the neighborhood.
No, now that we have a homeowner here who didn't hear some of our comments,
Okay.
if we wanted to address any of those
I
at this point or
I
not.
think I would just summarize, and correct me if this is wrong, guys, that the commission collectively expressed some concern as to the lack of robust fenestration on the sides, but we didn't think that was egregious enough. Well, the vote presumably might reflect this, to base, any requests off of. But that, I think that was generally the concern. So, does anyone wanna make a motion?
I just did.
Oh, did you? Okay. Second? So, and that's, I assume it's to approve as is?
Yeah,
Okay, second.
approve as presented.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we appreciate everything you're doing. Okay, next item on the agenda are the minutes, or is the minutes.
Thank you,
Is the minutes.
thank you.
So Hank, why don't you give us the background and,
I
tell
would
us-
love to.
The Reader's Digest version.
I will give you the Reader's Digest version of this. The issue that we had with this, last time we had tried as a substitute because Melissa was unable to attend, at the suggestion of some people to try to get a court reporter to see if they could take the minutes. The problem was is that it took a little bit longer to get the minutes, and it also took down every single of, well, like, you know, so I mean, I had 137 pages of stuff to go through to distill it down, which is why they're in front of you tonight, rather than what would have normally been in your packet. So if you have a chance to look them over, if you see anything egregious, please let me know. If you don't, you can certainly make a motion to approve, subject to any corrections as far as grammar, logistics. You can make that motion and we can correct it in-house after that. If you don't feel comfortable enough doing that, you can also defer acceptance to the next meeting.
Well, I don't know how we could, just personally, because we
Yeah.
just saw them.
I would prefer, you know, I mean, if you wanted to take a few minutes to look at it, that's fine, if you want to. Again, it's distilled down to, where you're at with 21 pages from the 137 that I was
Yeah.
provided with.
And we didn't see these until now.
Right.
So my suggestion would be to defer until next month, where we could approve 2 minutes at the same time.
That's fine.
But my question is, are we gonna do this again?
Not a chance.
Okay. So,
I
this
was
is
on
a,
vacation, so
What?
I
Not a
literally was on the other
chance.
side of the state.
okay, so
I can tell
no
you that,
apologies needed.
I can tell you that this took way more time than we had to deal with it, so we'll be doing something, we'll have somebody fill in, I mean, even if we tape it, I'm fine with having somebody do it off
And-
the tape.
Sheldon?
Yeah, my question is whether or not, in terms of approval and appeal periods, if there is one, if there's somebody who wants to make an appeal, does that period run from the date of the meeting or date of approval of the minutes of the meeting?
There's two schools of thought with that, and it's a good point, the lawyer in
You've
you
been
is
hanging
coming
around
out.
lawyers too long.
Yeah, I know. But the issue with this is that, number one, nobody would be likely to appeal because everybody got approved tonight. So that's one thought. The other thought with it is that I still have this copy, which is what's in front of you tonight, which fulfills our obligation as making draft minutes available to the public. So if anybody wanted that, I could do that. So having said that, if you defer acceptance to the next meeting, it shouldn't be an issue because the appeal would preserve. Yeah, in this particular instance, it's nothing that we wanna make a habit out of, and it's something that we really haven't until we tried this. And again, trial and error, and we need a better mousetrap for that. So whatever your pleasure is.
You want to defer to give us a chance to review it?
Well, just because I think it's not appropriate to have 20 single-spaced pages and then we vote on it right now without having read it.
Yeah, what I would do is at that point in time is that I would have an opportunity to go through it, perhaps even clean it up more and provide you with perhaps, and I don't know that these aren't fine, but I would have an opportunity to have
Okay.
somebody else take a look at them.
Yeah.
These, with all, you know, these were finished today, you know.
I got it, and it's a lot of work.
Do we have anything that gives us a standard as to how much detail? Other than this was brought before, this was on the table, a full discussion was had, motion was made, passed, or?
We actually don't need anything more than what you just said, Sheldon. We
Okay.
need the motion, the maker, and the vote. The topic, the motion, the maker, and the vote, we don't even need to. Historically, we've included more because it gives us a record as to if something comes up in the future, or do you remember if? We try to do that, so to the extent we can, we rely on Melissa's skills to to kind of help us out with that. But,
Now that we videotape, does that alter your
the
thought?
videotape helps. The only thing is that we don't have a lot of the technology to play it back at a desk and do it, so we would have to watch it through the YouTube, which, you know, Josh will provide for us, and do it that way. But the issue with that is that we had the meeting, this has on it the meeting about the Airbnb or the short-term rentals, and there was a lot of discussion on that. So then it becomes what do you want to include and what do you not want to include, and you don't want to miss any of the important points that were said. So with this particular one, we would tend to include more rather than less, just to make sure we got everything. So if it's your pleasure to defer to the next meeting, I am happy to supply
I'd like
these
to
to you.
move that we defer approval of the minutes of the Monday, August 27 meeting
Second.
until the next meeting.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here, so I don't know if they're accurate or not.
No,
But it
neither
wouldn't
does
matter.
anyone else.
Oh.
So,
Okay, then, the next item is public participation for anything. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion for,
Second.
all those in favor?
I-
Thank you.
thank you all very much.